So my name is Dustin Creighton. I teach 9th grade physical science here at St. George's. Four main realms of the course are chemistry, physics, astronomy, and earth science. So we're still in the beginning stages. We're attacking chemistry from the ground level, embedding a lot of these literacy strategies that I expect them to be able to use, later on in the course when we attack physics, astronomy, and the earth science portion. All right, today's lesson was a lesson on the background information of the periodic table of elements. So my main focus is the students understand the periodic table of elements, how it's set up, how it's organized, and specific patterns. So the actual, the reading document, the text that I had students looking at and reading was a quick thing that I put together, a reading on the periodic table, the background information about the periodic table. It was a reading that talked about the major groups and categories and how the overall periodic table is set up. It talked about certain families and certain particular areas of interest on the periodic table. I wanted to start the lesson off going back and addressing their learning map. On their learning map is kind of like, just kind of gives them an idea where they are in the course, the lesson, the class. Thinking about it as, when you go to the inventory at the mall, to kind of figure out where you are in the mall and where you're headed or where you've been. So we addressed that first. I wanted to make note of that, the lessons that we've attacked, the lessons that we've already done, and preview pertinent vocabulary. So this is our first divider in our binder, right? And this is an important piece of paper that kind of keeps us kind of centralized, so we know where we're going, where we've been, where we're going, and where we're currently at. Does everyone have this? Joseph. Now think about what we've done. So overall, right, this particular unit, the next test we're going to have, which is going to be this Thursday and Friday, is that performance task / quiz, which is Thursday and Friday of this particular week. All right, so keep in mind, I talked about this last week, but it's important that we're preparing for this. This is a challenge because it's a different way of taking a test that you're not familiar with. It's putting a puzzle together using clues and hints about periodic trends. So please focus, make sure you're asking questions, you're paying attention to these lessons leading up to that. But we know overall, right, what does the periodic table tell us about elements? We are trying to infer, make predictions about elements based on where it's located on the periodic table. That's the overall idea of the lesson. Again, we got into activities. Think about activities we've done and yet not have done yet, right? So we know we've done breaking the code. And that was that lesson you have going into and looking for different properties and trends, right? A trend. All high school boys are now wearing skinny pants, right? They're all wearing really, really tight pants. That's a trend. It's not saying it speaks for everyone, but it's a general trend about a specific group, right? But when we talk about organization, right, we're talking about how is the 4 years, how are you kind of grouped? How are we organized as a class body? What are you right now? You're a freshman. In year 2, you were a, very good, we're learning. What are you year 3? So they're kind of grouped in by what year you are in high school. We talk about trends versus organization. This will make sense. Okay, so we're kind of figuring out where we are, and then pertinent vocabulary surrounding the periodic table of elements. Words that you should be confident in using and familiar with. Then we have our LEQs. As we go through these lessons, these are important questions that you should be able to look at. The ones you can't answer, maybe we're not there yet. All right, but we should be able to answer these questions in consecutive order as we go through the unit. You should be able to tell me what matter is, how it's classified. Right now, we should be able to have a general idea of trends and patterns of the periodic table. All right. And what we're learning into is to make predictions about elements and the information found in that single box on the periodic table of elements. The second portion of the lesson, I wanted to do an activator, some way of kind of previewing vocabulary words. The students were using a FRAIR model with the main topic of the periodic table in the middle, and then 4 quadrants, top left, top right, bottom right, each having a different trend, and one being trends and patterns, one being organization, one being information found in a single box on the periodic table, and then another just being people associated to the periodic table. I was quick with this. I wanted them to quickly preview the vocabulary and place them in a spot they felt was the best fit, knowing that they would make mistakes and later on come back and then correct this particular FRAIR model. So that was the activator. If you flip it over, we saw this last week, but we didn't actually get into it, right? We did a little bit of activities, but what I want you to do now, this is called an activator. like previewing the vocabulary. On the right margin, you see a list of vocabulary words. They're the same words as the other side of the paper. This, you should be familiar with, is a Frere model. Frere model, the main idea is in the center of the Frere model. In each of the quadrants, the four corners, you have a specific kind of content area or more narrowed field of vision here. So we're talking with the periodic table, this top quadrant on the left is going to be patterns. Top right, organization. Bottom left is information found in a single box, found all those many boxes in the periodic table. And then the bottom right is going to be people associated to the periodic table of elements. So you're not going to get this right or wrong, all right? We're going to come back to this later, but do your best based on what you know now and what we've done up to this point. I want you to place these vocabulary words into the area of organizing these words, right? Just like we organized items for classifying matter, organize these items to where they best fit. Some words could be used more than once in different places. But right now, what you're going to do, all right, quietly, by yourself, quickly, place those words where you believe is the best placement for them. Right or wrong answer. You don't have to agree with somebody. Where'd you put reactivity?
In organization.
Put it in organization? Okay. Joey, where'd you put metal?
Organization.
You put it in organization. Blake? Non-metal. Where'd you put that one? Organization. Alex, where'd you put metalloid? All right. Transition metals. Brianna, where'd you put it? If you had to guess right now. 3, 2, 1, where are you going to put it? Put it as organization. Okay. Don't be afraid. There might be a bunch of repeating ourselves. It's okay. Alkali metals. Alina, where'd you put alkali metals?
No, information.
Information found in a single box? Okay. Where'd you put the word period?
Information found in using.
Okay. Element. Alexa, where'd you put element?
Organization.
Okay, organization. Group or family, Charlie, where'd you put that one?
I put that in organization.
Okay. Nate, what about noble gases? Where would you put it now? You had to put it somewhere. Organization. Checks, where'd you put halogens? Patterns? No, what about atomic number? Information found in a single box. Symbol. Jordan? Alkaline earth metals. Jake, where'd you put that one?
Organization.
Okay. How about atomic mass? Paige? Information. And the point of this too is getting more familiar. We're going to see these words again today in this particular reading activity we're about to do. So look. The next portion of the lesson, what I had intended and wanted to do then with them as a class, is teaching a literacy strategy referred to as AI cubed. A stands for analyze, and then interpret, infer, and integrate. So, and I wanted to do this as a class and work with them, and the goal being that they build skills necessary to be successful with literacy later on in their high school career. So I wanted them to do this together as a group so we can tackle other types of literacy later on in the course. And you read a whole passage, and none of it stuck. So what I'm introducing today is a way of interacting with text. As a ninth grader, I think it's important to develop certain literacy skills that we can take with us going forward so we can be more successful in our high school careers. And again, the whole end goal is to achieve something, make that moolah, right? So it's called AI cubed, right? AI cubed. So AI to the third power. And what that stands for is analyze, interpret, infer, and integrate. So you see the A and then there's 3 I's. You see where you got the acronym from, right? Make sense? Pretty cute? Nice. All right, so think about those steps. Now, I just gave you guys some text. That first step, right? That first A is analyze. And this is an easy part. And this is, I think, a really important one with science. And what was that question I put on there, Jake?
The first one?
Yeah, the first question in green.
What the heck am I looking at?
Yeah, right? I mean, what the heck am I even looking at? That's kind of the first analyze. You see the word analyze, we're not reading anything. All we're going to first do is look at the document, whether it's long, short, just look at it. And what information can you gather about the document just looking at it? Okay, what's unique? Why is it different than something else you've read? How's it different than a novel? Maybe it's different than a graph. You know, what do you notice about the document? Okay, that's interpret. That's analyze. All right, what are we looking at? What do we notice? Give me one.
Words are bolded.
You guys notice that? Now, she said, she looks at the text, and she sees often many words that are bolded. What's unique about the words that are bolded? Nate? They're the vocabulary words, right? So we've already kind of, in this text, they've already bolded. Someone took the time to bold the words. Bold the words that are significant. They're significant because we just previewed those vocabulary words. What else do we notice? You see in the margins, right? So what Kennedy had just mentioned, right? So she's seeing in the left-hand margins, not typed, or some handwriting. So we can see, maybe this is the way the paper is organized. It starts off first with a what? Introduction. The next portion of it goes into metals, nonmetals, and metalloids. So again, that's a big chunk of change there with the passage. A big chunk refers to talking about metals, nonmetals, and metalloids. Flip it over. It then goes into what? Groups and families, right? Groups or families, are they rows or columns on the periodic table of elements? They're columns, right? So those columns are referred to as groups or families. Finally, the last word, periods, right? So what's significant about periods in reference to the periodic table of elements? So what else do we notice? Whenever you're reading something, what's usually the most important thing? What's kind of that hook, line, and sinker that gets you? You guys, Facebook, all right? Instagram, what's that hook?
Video.
Well, you could say skip the video. Think just about the document. Don't say it, but she already said it.
Emoji.
The emoji? There's no emojis in this one. Caption? What's another one? Name? What else? You guys even read the newspaper anymore? No. All right. Kennedy, what was it? The title, right? The title. The title. The first thing you notice on the document. What is the title, Joey?
Oh, you want me to say what it is?
What is it? Tell me.
Periodic table background reading.
So we know the reading is going to be about the periodic table. We know it's not about NASA and their trip to the moon. This is strictly about the periodic table of elements, and more specifically, background reading, right? So it gives me some background info, all right? Maybe it's some information that's not just surface level, but more a deeper context about and surrounding the periodic table, okay? This next part is interpret, right? The interpret in purple, all right? What was that video, and that was it Shia LaBeouf? He's like, let's do it, right? So what we're doing is reading it. Let's read it. Let's read it and also kind of interact. This is where we highlight or make margin notes. Pull out the important pieces from the text. And we're going to do that here in a moment. But just kind of going down the list. The next part's infer. You know how you read some text, all right, and you as the reader are noticing things going on that aren't blatant, but you can pick up. All right, using context clues. You might see a vocabulary word you're not familiar with, but based on the context surrounding the words, you're making some inferences. You're inferring what it truly means. And again, periodic table is all about predictions. So we're making predictions. Like Mendeley said, he knew that guy was wrong because based on where he was going to place it on the periodic table. And they argued, but he was right because it didn't match the trends and the properties of the periodic table. So making inferences, right? And then lastly is integrate. This is where you do that assignment the teacher asks you to do. Like, oh, he wants us to answer these questions. So I can't answer those questions without the resource. So we take what we read, we use that information to be successful in answering the questions wherever whatever activity the teacher poses for you, which we're going to end with some questions and understanding the periodic table and how it's put together. So using both the periodic table and this reading to answer a set of questions after we've interacted with the text. All right? So let's try it. So the end result here, in conclusion, my goal was that the students would be able to integrate what they read with the questions that I had posed for them. And the questions that I used were of Costa's 3 levels of questioning. You know, I had some low level, level 1 questioning, just kind of pull right from the text. I had some prediction type questions, level 2. And then level 3, some questions that kind of made them use some lessons prior to this and really put some things together to come up with a really good hypothetical, hypothesis type answer to a higher level question. So how do the students respond? I think whenever you do a large group teacher-led activity, you're always going to get better questioning, better quality answers for the most part. So I think today's lesson, with me guiding through this strategy, went relatively well. I'd be curious to know if I just gave this to them and relied on them to use this strategy, what would the quality of answers be? So in that respect, I don't know if it would have went so well. Not to say that it wouldn't go good, but I think that's what we're building up to, and hopefully students will have a skill to attack text in the future.